Hey, what's up, man?
Hey, this is pretty cool, huh?
Yeah,
How you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Good, good. Um, just hanging in,
Yeah,
like us all, right?
yeah. You working from home?
Yes.
That's good.
Yeah. How about you?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I just feel very fortunate that we can work from home, versus the many people that, you know, just don't get a paycheck now.
That's true. That's true. I mean, yeah, I just saw an article talking about like jobless numbers or unemployment numbers just off the hook. I mean, a
Yeah.
lot of people have lost their jobs. That's to me, whoa, that's the serious thing we got to be thinking about here.
They said on NPR this morning, they were talking about how, what was it? I mean, I don't know what the number was, but it was like 4 million people applied for unemployment.
Huh?
And or maybe, I don't remember what the number, it was like 40% higher than it's ever been.
Wow.
It was just a crazy amount of people. I have a buddy
Yeah.
who I used to work in restaurants with, and um, yeah, he's got for a while he was hanging in there, doing takeouts or whatever, but now he's out and he's having a hard time with the system so overwhelmed that he's not able to get his benefits. Like eventually I think he'll get them, and I do think they pay like hey there.
Yeah, bro. Hey, how's it going?
Good. My internet, it looks like it dropped.
Yeah, internet. I mean, that's the other thing that's a concern is when is the internet gonna crash? When's that gonna happen? Everyone's sort of fully taking advantage of the internet more and more every day, and I think this type of Zoom video chat is going to become more and more common as people seek, ways to feel connected. Because you can't physically be with each other, but you still have that craving to have some kind of more close fellowship with, your fellow human beings or brothers. Um, So I think that at some point this should overwhelm the system. I don't know though. I don't know about the whole 5G thing and how much of that's rolled out. And I mean, we're not hearing any updates from our government about the internet issue, which is interesting because that's also a serious national security concern. I would think.
Yeah, I don't, man. I just finally got your picture back. I couldn't see you.
Mm,
Um,
okay.
like I think first off, the internet and being able to connect like this is super cool.
Yeah.
But I think there's a good chance that this plus a lot of other things in our infrastructure are going to crumble. And those are the things like have you ever been through the Spy Museum, and towards the end of it they show what would happen if there was like an attack on our infrastructure?
I haven't been there.
It's a
Okay.
cool. It's
I'd
worth
like to
it.
go. Yeah.
Yeah, it's worth the trip. It'd be fun to take the kids.
Yeah, that's true.
But it was like kind of scary how easy it would be to take down our infrastructure, like our electrical grids, that means all computers, all stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking we should start prepping, like with our own walkie-talkies, plenty of batteries,
That's a good idea. Walkie-talkies.
crossbows.
Oh shit. I know. I mean, I've actually debated the gun thing. It's funny. There's all these memes on the internet from more conservative brothers and friends I know say, yeah, all my liberal Democrat guys that were so anti-gun are now all begging me to borrow a gun. This is what I say to them, when they want a gun now. Are you seeing all those memes too? They're funny.
Yeah, yeah.
I was never on the extreme of either side. I am not a gun guy in general, just because I don't think I'm fearful of guns. I've never been a hunter. I've always felt sorry for the animal. I went hunting once when I was a kid with like my dad or my uncle, and I felt horrible. Watching the animal get shot just for fun, or even if it's for meat, I just felt
Dude,
bad.
I shot a rabbit one time and it
Yeah,
screamed like a baby.
yeah,
It
yeah.
was a
It's
horrible, and
terrible.
what my older brother walked over to it and just twisted its neck and threw it,
Yeah.
and Just,
some people have that ability, you know, they can just do that. I can't.
yeah.
I'm way too sensitive. I think that's why I've veered towards vegetarianism multiple times in my life. Currently I'm not, but yeah, so, but I've been thinking about a gun lately because everyone's saying it and it makes you scared. You're like, shit, maybe I should get one just for self-defense. But I'm like, shit, I don't want a gun in my house because I got 4 boys, 2 of whom are teenagers and are being very rebellious and have a temper, you know, and it's like, do I really want that around the house? So what I
wouldn't,
did,
dude.
I'm
I wouldn't
not,
do it.
I'm not. So what I did is I bought a toy gun. My wife suggested it. That was so smart. I was like, wow, toy gun. One that looks kind of real. But
Yeah.
mine's not like a total replica or anything, but I got a toy shotgun. So, you know, hey, in the case of emergency, it's better than having nothing. At least I can psychologically perhaps intimidate it because it's all up here at the end of the day, right? It's what that person believes. Perception creates reality.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, man, COVID-19 is spawning a masonic revolution. I believe that. It's an underground revolution. Underground meaning it's under the radar of a lot of people that are not technically inclined.
And now, do you say this because I noticed, and I think I mentioned that, or maybe it was to Brian yesterday I was talking to, I was saying that, you know, it seems for whatever reason, maybe it's people are home or whatever, but like our group's taken off and I've joined another group and, you know, like there's a lot of people talking and, you know, there's,
right.
And I don't know, if is it an urgency to come up with some sort of message or some sort of action to a possible catastrophe, right? Not like, you know, I mean, because if shit really does go down, we're gonna have to tribe up and bond up and, you know, work together.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's when that whole fellowship and the brotherhood and the fraternal aspects of our organization should play a fundamental role, right? In times of need, brethren in need, right? So yeah, I agree with you. And so, yeah, we need to start thinking about that. And I think the first step is to set up communications, which is what we're doing right now when you think about it. But many of these communications we're setting up, as you rightly pointed out earlier in our conversation, are dependent on the functioning of the internet.
Yeah.
So having like walkie-talkies or something like that, that's actually really wise, just in case. And they might still be available online. Not everybody's thinking of that.
Well, it would be, you know, like what would be the smart move would be to get the military grade, you know, those big ass fuckers that can go, you know, continent to continent. You know,
that's super wise, right? You know, then you're prepared for any potentiality, right?
Yeah.
But are those dependent on something? Are they dependent on satellite functioning?
Satellite, probably.
And is the satellite functioning somehow interconnected with the internet functioning? Do the satellites depend on data coming from the internet?
I think that they can operate independently without, I think that they feed to the internet, right? But as they float out there, and I don't really know, I'm just guessing. But I like to think that the
you
network.
Mean you're not a rocket scientist?
I like to think that the network that's out there, unless there was something specifically designed to fry all that shit, you know, that they would, you know, because they have to have self-sufficient energy and shit going on, right?
Right.
So,
right.
You know, but that, I mean, for the media, like, you know, just some really good. The reason I started thinking about walkie-talkies is because of how, you know, how dependent on the cell phone we are. And I was like, well, if something happened and, you know, like my family got split up, how would I be able to talk to them and stuff, you know?
Right,
and
right.
Like, which in a weird way, it wasn't, you know, like 20 years ago, like we didn't even have that option. So we would have known, oh, well, she'll always meet me at the firehouse, or, you know, you have things that you do. But I feel like society has gotten we've gotten weaker because of the strength of the phone, right? Of the, like, the convenience of it. Like, things have, like, senses of, like, okay, when shit goes down, we're going to rally up over here, you know, like that would be on your mind, because you wouldn't be thinking, oh, I can just call the person and tell them to meet me wherever, you know?
Right, right.
So it's time to toughen up.
Yeah, and I was thinking maybe also like any kind of off-grid supplies, like an off-grid outlet online that sells things like walkie-talkies that can work off-grid. Like the idea of off-grid, like if the grid goes down, right? If our system stops functioning, like people that live off-grid generally have everything they need, and they're not dependent on something external. And so maybe a good business would be like offgridmasonicgear.com. Business idea.
Yeah. That wouldn't,
would have been
that'd
nice
be good.
set up before now, though. These kinds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the dark web probably has plenty of
That's true.
gear.
Yeah, that's right.
But that would go down too if the whole internet went down, right?
I guess. I've never been invited to the dark web. I'm not sure even where it is or how to find it. I know it exists, but I guess I've seen it, but I haven't sought it out. I think you have to seek it out to find it.
Yeah, neither have I.
And once you find it, you're being tracked.
Yeah. That's why I haven't looked at it.
I'm not looking. I want to go there.
Yeah.
I'm being tracked for other reasons that, I don't need to be tracked again at another level, No, thank you.
Too many different trackers. Not good.
Exactly. Yeah. So what do you think about this idea that there's a Masonic revolution happening right now that's being thrust forward or mobilized, I would say, through online education and fellowship? That there's a shift occurring in Masonry, in the undercurrent.
I don't know if it's a little early to call it a revolution, unless it's happening, like within our own bubble, our own group, and like a couple other groups. But we're seeing a lot of activity and everything. But is that happening all over the world?
Good question. Well, hey, it doesn't have to happen all over the world. A revolution always starts with a small group of guys, right? Or whatever it is.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, a few minds. That's how a revolution starts. So I'm seeing this as the beginnings of a revolution, I guess. I think there is going to be a revolution in Masonry.
In what sense?
Well, because we're going back to the fundamentals, I think, of what it's about, what the whole initiatic experience is about. What is a secret society? What are Freemasons? What was this all about from the get-go? It was about imparting light, which is wisdom. Where do you get that? From life experience and education, right? So I think this proliferation of online education, Masonic education, and esoteric Masonic education is giving us all more light. And often more light than we ever had in sitting in a lodge, where 90% of it was not about light, maybe, was about process. So, and not to say that those processes don't sort of imbue some kind of transformation, because I do believe that too. Like even just simply debating about the bills, like people joke about that. What a waste of time. Or talk about the light bills, the old joke about the Masonic Lodge meeting. You become a Master Mason, and lo and behold, you come to your first meeting and you're so excited, and brothers are arguing over a light bill. And that's Masonry, or that becomes your perception of Masonry. But even that in and of itself is Masonry. When you think about it, the simplest things in life, why can't they be seen as also divine? You know what I mean? Like everything we do can be a spiritual act if done well. It's an act of refinement. It's the craft. The craft is in how we cook our food, how we talk to each other, how we conduct a meeting about a bill. Nothing's too low or too high for the craft. I mean, that's just my opinion. So, and the reason why I went off on that tangent is to say that I don't mean to downplay the 90% that's happening in the lodge. That might seem just like process. And the fact that we only have a small percentage, sometimes 5-10 minutes devoted to education, if there's time, right? So what I see as the revolution here is this undercurrent of fellowship and communication that's really hovering around education, PowerPoints, talks, fellowship around concepts of masonry. So I think that this is going to reinvigorate masonry, through its underlying foundation of seeking more light.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that from the first meeting that we had, that there is kind of that feeling that this is what masonry should be, not that 90% of bullshit. And even though the bullshit needs to be done, so I mean, I definitely, in that sense, I do feel like there is a revolution starting. At least I can speak for within me. There's been, for 10 years I've been going to these business meetings and being like, I love the degrees and everything, but like the actual, like the monthly meetings are just kind of boring. There's not much to it.
Yeah. And it gets more boring over time as you get sort of used to the monotony of it. And then that's why the brothers that have been Masons for a long time often want to hurry it up and get out of there. Because they've been through it, they've been through it, and they're not seeing super value in a lot of what's happening. Honestly, I think what we should be spending more of our time on is ritual and education, and much less the business process. I kind of like the Scottish Rite model, at least in Alexandria, where they have their business meeting apart. They have a business meeting that's just a business.
That's smart.
And there's no like ritual opening and closing or whatever. It's a business meeting, and you can come or not. And usually it's a lot of the older guys that have been involved for a long time who are more deeply involved with the Alexandria Scottish Rite, but Valley. And then they have their regular Scottish Rite meeting, which focuses on education. There's usually a presentation of like a half hour or something like that. But there is a formal opening and a formal closing, right? I like that model where you take all that kind of sort of boring, mundane stuff, all those affairs of, paying the bills outside of the actual Masonic meeting. Yeah.
I feel like by doing like the esoteric Sundays and similar groups, we're just taking all of that out. And we're having all the good stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's in reverse in a way. When you think about it, it's in reverse. It's a reverse model of the Scottish Rite in Alexandria. So the Scottish Rite in Alexandria, they do all their business as a side thing. And they put their education in the middle of their opening and closing rituals, right? Whereas what we did with Sundays is we took the education as a side thing, and we put the business in our opening and closing ritual with some small education, So yeah, it's kind of a reverse model, but I guess it really doesn't matter at the end of the day. I mean, as long as you're getting that education somehow, and I think we've made ends meet, and we're getting that education in our lodge, which is good. And now we're trying to spread that education, from sort of our lodge to a broader community of brothers and Masons. As you can see online, we have, we started with the Sundays group. Of course, there was always TMR for a long time, and I'm a big fan of the Masonic Roundtable. I watched a ton of their videos. I haven't watched every one of them. I wish I had the time to watch every one of them. But they were kind of the trailblazers in this kind of online medium with their podcast show. And, then we started Sundays, and we're lucky we had a head start before the whole COVID thing hit. We were already doing Sundays. We were meeting up in person. We were also doing watch parties, and then COVID hit. So we already had something going. And then I remember when Brother Joe Martinez and some others started up the Refracted Light page, which was a coordinating body because they started to see that there were a lot of online content. There was a lot of online Masonic content coming out, and there needed to be some coordinating way to make all brothers aware of all the different great stuff that's coming out and make it a little more organized. And so that's been a great effort, and you can see what's coming out of that. My schedule is full with Masonry now. It's actually more full now than when I did physical Masonry. Can you hang on 1 second? Hang on 1 second.
You doing the degrees and whatnot?
Yeah, hang on 1 second.
Okay, yeah.
So what were we saying? My son wanted some paper. 4-year-old.
I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, we're talking about the Refracted Light group and how everything's sort of broadened now. And I think it's great. I think we're on a wave right now. We're all kind of riding this wave. We see it as a real wave. We're riding it because we see good coming out of it. And I think that there will be a lot of great quality education coming out. And the other great thing is it's leveling the playing field. Now, everybody that's into esoteric stuff or into masonry and into education and has a thought or a presentation to share, they don't have to wait to be invited to a physical lodge to present. You can
these are open?
Something.
These groups?
Anybody can present something. I mean, you can form your own page and make a presentation.
No. I mean, do you have to be a Mason to join?
In refracted light, you don't. That's why it's so big. It's a lot of Masons, and it might even be mostly Masons, but it's not all Masons. It's not a tiled group, and we have made that clear. Joe, in particular, has made that clear, that this is not a tiled group, right? And so it's broader. And I started thinking, shit, I should open up Sundays, because I lean more towards open, especially with Masonic education. Obviously, ritual, details of ritual, words and handshakes or whatever, any of this stuff, signs, none of that can be revealed, right? That's what's secret in Masonry, because that gives you the experience. It's the surprise. We don't want to spoil surprises, otherwise you don't have a transformation. But wisdom and knowledge of symbolism is not secret, and in fact there's no right answer. So what would be the secret? Because symbols can have more than one interpretation. So who's going to judge that interpretation is the secret one? Who's going to judge? Who knows that? So that's why there's a lot of lectures online about symbolism, about wisdom. You can watch a lot of stuff, right? So anyway, so I think that when I heard that refracted light was open, I was thinking, shit, maybe Sunday should be open, because I tend to lean towards, we need more wisdom in the world. Why would we want to hide wisdom, that can help the world on a good path? And also it might attract new Masons that are actually have a genuine interest in Masonry, because we're not real good at outreach. We don't go out into the public often and answer their questions about what Masonry really is. So refracted light gives that opportunity. Some brothers come in, maybe that are interested in Masonry but aren't Masons, and they watch stuff on there, and then they want to join Masonry. But when one more thing.
Okay.
One more thing, and then I'm done. The last thing I was going to wrap it up is that so I decided to keep Sundays closed to Masons, because a lot of the brothers that were already part of Sundays wanted it so. Right? A lot of them said, well, I kind of like the fact that it's just us and we can talk comfortably about some of these things, even though you can never technically tile on the internet. So it doesn't mean we can start talking secret stuff, but it makes people feel a little more comfortable. So I said, all right, let me leave it that way for now.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple things that hit me there. One was when you're so when you become a Mason and you go through the degrees and you're told, okay, these are the secrets, or you'll be getting these secrets, and the penalty for releasing these secrets is this, that, and the other thing. And what I start thinking is, so the secret is enlightenment, right? It is by doing certain things, you get closer to your maker, your God.
That's right.
Why would we want to keep that secret?
Well, right. This is a good question too. I mean, I think the first thing that pops into my own mind is you don't throw pearls to swine.
Yeah.
Right. And it's the fear is that, first of all, you shouldn't force anything on anybody. That the teacher teaches the student about gravity when the apple falls from the tree, kind of thing. Like you don't want to just impose a lot of information on everybody if they're not ready or interested. Well, that's one. But another thing is some of this knowledge can give you empowerment and could go to your head potentially and make you arrogant, right? Like you feel like you know the secret now. You're in the information. You're like in this elite group, and then you start to get an attitude, and you start to, and maybe your heart's not developed. You see, so there's that risk too. That's the whole pearls to swine thing. So I think that's part of it. But you're right. Why wouldn't you want wisdom that could help improve people and help this world to get out there, right? So it's really about finding the right balance. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the way I see it is, then as we become more enlightened, as we become more in the know, um, it is our duty to our fellow man to share that. And I don't mean in like a Jehovah Witness type way, but through example, right? Like you know, volunteering our time, being nice and slow, and you know, not, you know, just being a good person. And that would attract, you know, people. You know, that's what religious people do. Like often they're like, hey, how did you get that quote glow you've got about you? Well, that was Jesus gave me that glow. You know, and then it's a big con.
That's wonderful if Jesus can do that. All the more power to them, right? Whatever gets you there.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying that I don't know. I mean, I feel like you know, like especially the alchemy stuff, and you know, like getting real deep in involved in this stuff.
Yeah.
Like it unravels different layers of reality, of existence, you know, like on a quantum plane, and
Right.
that shit is cool. You know,
That is cool. Yeah, yeah. And in fact, I've been thinking a lot about that in nature, and how like everything in nature sort of reflects everything else in a sense, like the whole as above, so below, as within, so without principle. When you start to really grasp that concept, you start to see whether it's at the level of the 7 alchemical processes, or whether it's a planetary system of 7 planets, or the rainbow, or we're going to do this through music and chanting, and the 7 vowels, or the 7 chakras, or whatever the system is. You're seeing that at multiple levels the truth exists, and it's always one, and it's a repeating pattern of truth that you can discover even in atoms and molecules. If you're a scientist, for example, you might find it there. If you're an alchemist, you'll find it in alchemy. But it's that same damn pattern that's trying to, like, it's a sign. It's trying to wake us up and say, look, this is how reality operates. And it operates like this everywhere and through everything.
and all you need to do is take acid to figure that out. Tell me.
That part I'll delete from our conversation now.
But no, tell me that even if it was mushrooms or whatever, like that was my first. And dude, I was raised in a church, and all that, and I never had any kind of connectiveness and understanding as I did the first time I took mushrooms. I was just like, holy shit!
Yeah.
It all makes sense.
I have to admit, the same for me. When I was in college, I took mushrooms, and that opened me up to everything mystical. Before that time, I was very much philosophical, but I was not an atheist. I had gone beyond that. I think I was an atheist like in high school. When you sort of get over Santa Claus and the Orthodox religion and stuff. And I was Gen X, so I was into punk rock and hardcore and skateboarding. So I would say I was more atheist at that time. And then by the time I got to undergrad in Boston University, I was studying psychology, and I was agnostic. And I was also studying philosophy. So, but then when I took mushrooms, it was a friend of mine who recommended it, because she was saying, well, Jeremy, if you really want to know the answer to life, and you're all philosophical, because I've always been like this, you should try this stuff. This will make you really think. You really want to get deep? I'm like, yeah, I love anything. Is that what it does? That's amazing. And so I took it, and from that point on, I had like a revelatory experience of my own, where I had a lot of insights about the universe and reality that I didn't know quite what it was, but I knew that it was profound. And then I think the first book I came across, believe it or not, was Aldous Huxley, The Doors of Perception. One friend of mine who was like a kind of hippie into the Grateful Dead recommended, so yeah, man, no, I know what you're talking about. He's like, you should really read this book, dude. I think you're going to like it. It's called Doors of Perception by Aldous Huxley. So I read that book, and I was like, it was a little bit abstract, but I got hints of what I was thinking and what I experienced. I was like, yes, this is it. I need more of this kind of book. Where can I find books like this? Then I came across, I think it was shortly after that, I came across Ram Dass, Be Here Now. And that was the book that just blew my mind. I mean, it's kind of silly to think about now, because when I look at that book now, it doesn't have the same impact on me, because like it's of course these kinds of things are true. But I was kind of dumb, young, naive at that time. So these things were powerful revelations, you know. So even Ram Dass's Be Here Now was like, whoa, this is exactly what I was thinking and feeling. Wait, this is called Buddhism. This is mysticism. What is this? There's a field here that I could actually read more books about. So, you know, I'm not crazy. This is something, and other people also think about these things, and it's ancient, you know. And so then I was going to Harvard a lot, the Harvard Square, because I was living in Boston. There was a metaphysical bookstore in Harvard Square. This was in like around 1991.
Hey, hold on one sec, Jeremy. Hold
Go
on.
ahead.
Sorry about that. Go ahead.
No worries. Yeah. So that was around 1991 when I was a sophomore at BU, when I had this experience. So I started going to Harvard Square. There was a metaphysical bookstore there. And man, I was like a kid in a candy store, you know, in that metaphysical bookstore. It was like a new age metaphysical bookstore, but it was really well known in Harvard. It was a good one. It had a lot of books, lots of books, quality books on mysticism from all over the world, different cultures, different countries, Manly P. Hall, you name it. At that time, I didn't go deep into Manly P. Hall, though, or Masonry. I was more into world religion, and particularly Eastern religion. I was doing a lot of reading on Hinduism and Buddhism and Taoism and mysticism more generally. And then I got into the whole quantum physics thing. At that time, they had books like the Dancing Wooly Masters, I think the Tao of Physics and stuff like that. So I was reading that stuff too. Yeah, I ended up having hundreds of books, you know, as a, you know, young guy in college, all metaphysical books. And so that was kind of my initiation. So I share a similar experience. I feel like that opened me up. I'm not saying that that's the only way to get to these kinds of understandings, because obviously there are people that have never taken mushrooms and have come to these understandings. But these are spiritual plants, right? These are not, I don't even like to call them drugs. These are spiritual plants, like whether it's mushrooms, whether it's marijuana. These are plants that make you think differently, right? That open your mind and give you more creativity for a short period of time, and think about things you never thought about before, things you may have never imagined possible, you might think about while under the influence of something like mushrooms, for sure. And they've always been considered sacred plants throughout history. So why would that change here in the last 30, 40 years? Or, you know, 100 years? Why would that suddenly they're not sacred? You know, even though thousands of years, you know, they were always considered sacred, and a lot of times it was the medicine men or the sorcerers that would take these, or would initiate people using these plants, these medicinal plants, to have a spiritual experience, a transformative experience.
Yeah.
And that's my spiel, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that people are now, you know, like microdosing, and PTSD is being treated with it. You know, like things are opening up more. But what interests me is, so the plant or the fungus triggers something, but that something is already there, right? Mm-hmm. So it seems to me that, you know, like the great Buddhists, like the great, you know, the people, like have you ever seen like the Tibetan monks or any of those guys like perform? I mean, that shit, they are at that level through vibration and sound, and, you know, like it doesn't have anything to do with like, you know, hallucinogens. And that for me would be the goal, to be able to get to that level of awareness and enlightenment, to where, you know, you're kind of seeing how all the patterns do work together, and even a step further, how you can influence them to make them even better, or to not make them worse, right? So like what I'm saying, because they're already the way they're supposed to be, but, you know, we're trying to swim upstream and figure out, oh no, it goes this way. Right. But if we could just like kind of lay back and let it happen, you know, fucking wow, you know?
Yeah, and then also the whole vibration thing and sound, like you were saying, is really deep. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen any of the cymatics research and people looking into cymatics. Have you heard about
I've heard
that?
of it, but I've heard of. I don't recall the
The
philosophy or
details.
the
Yeah,
thought. Yeah.
so cymatics are really interesting. I've been watching videos of people doing little experiments, home experiments primarily in cymatics, but it's basically, it's kind of like the science of sound and how it affects matter. And a lot of people are doing it with like their home speaker systems and the vibration coming out of their speaker and putting like a tray of colored water on top. And when the speaker plays music, it forms patterns in the water and the ripples in the water, like geometric patterns.
Yeah, I've seen some of that. Yeah.
Geometric patterns. So I think there's a lot to the science of sound and mathematics and geometry. They're interrelated. And I think Pythagoras understood this with the harmony of the spheres, or whatever he called it, or the music of the spheres, that, you know, that our planets in their movement, in their rotation, in our solar system is somehow musical in a sense. It's harmonious and it makes a musical, you know, sound of some kind, yeah, or harmonious sound. And I think that's where the what is it called? Not the chords, but the musical scales sort of derived from this kind of concept. So yeah, I think there's something to sound too, and then the idea of the word. We talk about the word in Masonry. That's also very mysterious, right? What the hell do we mean by the word? You know, we think of the name of God or something. Some people think of the tetragrammaton. Some people think of more traditional names that are spoken of, such as Jehovah, or the four-letter name of God, Hashem. But if it's really ineffable, if God's name is truly ineffable, then how could we be giving actual sound words to God's name and say that this word is God's name, or that word is God's name, or that's the real word? You know, that's another level. Like, if it's ineffable, if you can't say it, then you can't say it. It's done. So it's not, there is no word. It's an ineffable word. What the hell is an ineffable word? Think about that. That's a koan right there. That's like, what's that one? What's the sound of one hand clapping? You know, maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's just a koan. It's there to fuck your head up. The ineffable word.
Possible.
Good luck. Keep searching. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, man. So what else? What else is going on?
Oh, not too much. I actually, I'm going to have to jump here. I have an
Yeah, me
11
too.
o'clock conference call.
Okay, cool. All right, thanks, brother. By the way, I recorded this.
Oh, good.
Yeah, did you know that?
No.
Okay. I
But
recorded.
I assumed you were.
Okay. Yeah, I recorded this just in case. I'm gonna like record whenever I talk with Masons. What I'm thinking is I'm gonna record them, and if one is good, like we have a really good conversation, and we both are in agreement that we're open to share it, this could be something we share. I was thinking of like having like a little show of conversations with Masons,
Yeah.
you know, or just two Masons talking, or just Masons talking. A show titled something like that.
I think we hit some good points.
Mm.
You know,
I did
definitely.
too. Yeah. I mean, some of the materials are slightly sensitive, and some of it's a little personal. So that's also a consideration.
Sure.
But nothing I'm really ashamed of that I said, to be honest.
Oh no, I'm definitely not. I'd say what I said to you to anybody.
Yeah, this is life. So, all right, brother. Well, I'll let you go, and we'll be in touch about it, and I'll look it over, and maybe I'll edit some of what we did, or maybe not, and then let me send it back to you, and you could look at and review it. And if you have any issues with anything, let me know. And if you think it's worthwhile to share, then we can do that.
And yeah, because you know, actually, I think as they progress, like if I went into this conversation thinking like, hey, is there topics that we could talk about that could actually help enlighten other people, or
Right.
you know,
Right. That's good.
then I then think that the conversation might be a little different than me thinking that, I'm just sitting here talking to my buddy Jeremy.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, that's a suggestion. We could actually ask for topic suggestions. We could say, hey, we're going to have another conversation, or is there any suggestions on what you'd like us to talk about?
Yeah, a good one would be fear,
Fear.
because right now it's pretty prevalent, like people are
And how to
very
deal with
scared.
it.
And
How to deal with the fear.
you there?
I'm there. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I am here. I am here. Hello? Be afraid. Be very afraid. You see, as soon as he mentioned fear, he loses his connection. What's that all about? Let's watch and see how long it takes for him to come back.
Hey, are you there?
I'm here. I was just joking that as soon as you mentioned fear, you lost your connection. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I gotta jump on this call.
All right, buddy.
It was good talking to you, Jeremy. Let me know if you want to talk again.
It's a pleasure. Thank you. Peace.